We are here for the CLEAN webinar. Thanks for joining us. I'm Katie Boyd. I am the CLEAN program manager. We have Gina Fiorile, who's the CLEAN coordinator, and she's going to help monitor the chat and technical issues. And Karin Kirk, a science journalist with Yale Climate Connections and NASA Climate Change, who's going to be facilitating the webinar and talking to us today. We're focusing a lot on consequences and solutions of climate change. And Karen's going to help us learn more about how we can teach these topics. So please take it away, Karen, and please use the chat and or the Q&A function for any questions that pop up as you go, and we'll be monitoring that, and we'll be putting links and resources in there as well. So watch out for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. And thanks everyone for coming. So yeah, man, we offer these webinars every semester, and we're always updating them and always responding to what's going on in our world. And it is amazing just how much everything keeps changing. So one thing we can offer you is that we are here for you, and we're always trying to keep everything current and fresh as possible. Just like this glacier, which was, let's see, I took this picture in 2019. It's probably like 50 more feet up the hill. But climate change has consequences for the Earth system and human lives. That is one of the aspects of climate literacy, and that's the central theme of this webinar. How do we teach about those consequences without making people miserable, making people too sad? And everyone is struggling with this. This is the most recent IPCC report. It's full of all kinds of like really big gravity kind of statements. Climate change is a threat to human well-being and the health of the planet. That's a gut punch. Any further delay in concerted global action will miss a brief, rapidly closing window to secure a livable future. What's amazing about these statements is that the IPCC is a really big, slow, cumbersome organization, and they are now at the point with this really strong language. It is time to go. But we can go. We do have things that we can do. So this report, in this case, offers solutions to the world. So you can pair these very heavy, very solid, serious messages with what's next. We caused this, we can solve this. And so I think that was a good example of like showing the gravity situation and then immediately showing that we got this. We don't know if we got this, but we can work. There's things we can do. So CLEAN is here to help you with all these things. So we want to talk about the consequences and the science of that without getting too depressed. Talk about how to use solutions, how to pair the two for motivation and engagement. And then we'll show you some updates on science along the way, as well as some examples from the CLEAN collection. And then Gina will be posting some of those examples in the chat as we go. So if you want to catch them. So if you look at our website and this is like a screenshot, we've had this explore teaching and climate and energy with the green arrow there. Then you get these big teaching climate, teaching energy sections. So that's kind of where we're diving in. That's where you can find a lot of the meat here. Within climate, you see this is today's theme, the one in orange. We have consequences of climate change for both the Earth, for the biosphere, for humans, for everything. We have a whole page on this. And so if you wanted to just refresh on this topic, you can jump in and sort of read some different summaries of it and how we would bring it into our classrooms and things like that. And it's a good starting point. This also has links to some of the teaching examples on this topic. But what I wanted to do was actually jump in a little more specifically and talk about some of the places. You could go on and on with this, but some of the places we're seeing these effects and ways we can teach that. But it's like this sort of two sides of the same coin. If we didn't have any consequences, we wouldn't really be concerned. It wouldn't grab people's attention. And so we need a certain amount of bringing in awareness of the consequences to really raise everyone's attention. However, you can very quickly too far and towards anxiety. And I think a lot of young people, your own audiences, but a lot of young people are already really overwhelmed with this. And the data is showing that. And it's amazing. And it's really, these are like gut check moments for us as educators and communicators of where we need to focus our messaging and where we need to like tread lightly. This was interesting work. This was surveying the youth from 10 different countries on sort of how they're feeling about climate change and their government's response. Pretty grim. I'll walk through a couple of these. So yeah, this is some of the details, but so of the study. But if we look just at American young adults, so our audiences, so governments are failing young people, 63% agree with that. Holy cow. Governments are lying about actions taken. Yeah. Governments are betraying me and future generations. So this, this is our audience. So we know that we don't need to hammer too hard on the problem. They are really looking for us to take care of them and protect them and our planet. Governments are acting in line with climate science. No, not enough. Okay, so we have room there. Then this is some good stuff that we can be teaching on. Are governments doing enough? No. Can governments be trusted? Also, no. Really interesting to look at American youth compared to other countries. And on this trust, we are particularly low. So that sort of frames our audience and where their heads are at. So what we want to do is avoid some of this despair. And you can teach the very same topic with or without despair. So here's climate and agriculture. I think a really great topic because it involves food and land use and farmers and things like that. Just have a look at these 4 headlines. And you can see that the top 2 are kind of the heavy hitter ones that could prompt despair. And then the bottom 2, the thing I really like about them is their questions. And they're questions that embody science and solutions, but as well as the consequences. And so that's just a quick snapshot of like a quick way of teaching the same topic, the same idea with and without a side dish of despair. Yeah, so posing this as what are the solutions? What do we do? Where are the questions? And also because they're open questions, that's really fun to teach and learn. And so we always want to have this sandwich of the impact on one hand, the solution right there on the other hand, so that we don't dwell too long on just the impact without the solution near at hand. This is a great starting place. Project Drawdown, maybe you've probably heard of it. They're one of the prominent sort of groups that's working on drawing together all the solutions and evaluating them and ranking them in order and things like that. And so they have a book, they have all kinds of stuff, but this just kind of brings you right to their solution summary. It's a really good starting off point, and it's also a great place to send your students. It can motivate many different lines of reasoning or student projects or presentations. There's just so much good stuff in here. So this is like a one-stop shop for solutions. We can get into vignettes and case studies, and we don't want to make it too ivory tower. We want to show like places around the world that are real, where people are making a difference. And so this video is just nice because it shows some of this more inspiring side, I guess, of climate action. Climate change is creating jobs, improving lives, turning dreams of a better future into reality. So that's what we need. Oh yeah, there's the quote right there. Yeah. So let's just step through some of these consequences real quick with that framing in mind, that we want to like pair up the solutions and show that where inspiration is available. So if we start with melting ice and sea level rise, there's some really great, this is climate.gov. This is NOAA, Clean and NOAA is a really amazing partnership. And this is right on the front page of climate.gov, sort of lower half of the page is this dashboard. NASA and EPA also have similar dashboards. And so this concept is really great because you can see data at a glance. And I love math and graphics. And this is just a cool little like eyeful of where do you see correlations? What's going in the same direction? What's driving what? And so I think this is a great place to start out. Just first of all, this isn't this right here isn't super depressing. It's also it's kind of these sterilized graphics, but it's really interesting. But if we want to talk about sea level rise, we can look at greenhouse gases going up, surface temperature down here going up, the oceans gathering more heat, glaciers melting, and sea level going up. Oh, sea ice also melting. Sea ice, of course, does not affect sea level. By the way, is the sun causing climate change? Doesn't look like it, does it? Any of these you can dive to deeper. And so this is the sea level item from the dashboard. You can get into the graph and the rates of change and things like that. But the key message on sea level rise, like, yeah, it's really interesting. Look at, why it's rising and where and all that, is that how much it's going to rise is up to us. There are many, many versions of this graph, right? It's not known because we get to decide what it is. And I think that's just always a message you can return to with any climate topic, is it is still in our futures. We need to be motivated. We need to know who's at risk. I think if you're teaching a class anywhere along these coasts, sea level rise is really interesting, but you can use local data. This is a sea level rise viewer by NOAA, and you can zoom right in to different populations or different locations. In the middle of the country, you would maybe pick a different topic. But yeah, a lot, 40% of the US is affected. And so, this is where I grew up. And so you can dive into these things and look at what's vulnerable, and again, how much sea level rise we're talking about. Well, it depends on what we do. Within the clean collection, we've got lots, and it's hard to pull these out because there's so many, but just in each of these slides, I tried to get a cross section of types of resources. So Northwest Passage has to do with melting ice and a sort of Google Earth exploration of, that ocean route becoming, less ice in there, becoming, opening up. Shrinking Glaciers is a video that talks about melting ice. Bering Sea is a web quest with videos and role playing. Students kind of dive into looking about the Bering Sea ecosystem. The Arctic sea ice losing its bulwark is a NASA visualization. NASA puts these out every year, sometimes twice a year, depending on Arctic, Antarctic, of constantly updating these visualizations of the shrinking ice. So lots of good things to engage people with melting ice. Whoops, I skipped this one. Sea level rise. We've got ideas of reading graphs, looking at scenario-based problem solving, making graphs. And so lots of ways to approach sea level rise. So you could search the clean collection and find these different things. You can also search by activity type and say, I want to look at videos, I want to engage in data, things like that. Okay, so we have raising temperatures, melting ice, raising sea levels. When we shift to on land, if we keep the theme on water, we have this weird dichotomy of too much water and not enough water at the same time. Why is that? So a warmer atmosphere holds more water, and the US on average has warmed up about 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's become 4% wetter. This is not equally distributed. I think one of the things we're really learning on climate change is it's not like this average across time and space. It's like everything all at once in one spot. And so the risk here is really this northeast, sort of northern Midwest to the northeast. That's where we're getting these really heavy precipitation events that are causing a lot of damage, both to property and human life. And, these are real things. I don't love the fact that we're so motivated by money, but it does get people's attention. And so this is a major impact of these gully making episodes, and you're seeing them in Europe and in Asia and South America and all over. And Colorado, even though not one of the highlighted places on this map, had one, was it 2 or 3 years ago, maybe? I feel like no one's really escaping these, even though they're concentrated in the northeast. Anyway, so that's the too much precipitation. At the very same time, you have the not enough precipitation. Again, the country is really divided, so teach to your local audience, but it's the West that's constantly in these droughts, and these are long-term droughts. This is the current map from drought.gov. We've eased the drought a lot thanks to a sequence of atmospheric river storms in California and the Southern Rockies. Nevertheless, these are major impacts. Typically, something like $9 billion a year in damages from drought. And we see that in land use, in fires, in price of food, and things like that. So it's a very real, very feelable problem. I live in Montana, and the drought and smoky skies are really a drag. And so what's up with wildfires? Wildfires are, people could say, oh, well, fires always burn. Sure, just like everything has always happened in the past, but it's definitely getting worse. Wildfires are caused by drier summers and hotter summers. And so if you plot this we have the dry on the horizontal axis and the hot on the vertical axis, and then you take it in that diagonal direction, you see the intersection of hot and dry is what's happening now, and that's what's really increasing the size of wildfires. We have around the same number of fires, but they just have an opportunity to get so much larger and last longer and spread faster. Okay, what do we have for resources on these topics? This one, the drought identifying impacts and evaluating solutions, uses news videos and data analysis and problem solving. So it's very kind of real. It's very like, this is what's going on in the world. It kind of equips students to deal with the problems in sort of news-based, reality-based ways. Satellite data. So NASA has these GRACE satellites that are measuring drought using the gravity of the water itself, which is actually really neat technology. And so I think students who like technology can be intrigued by stuff like that. Again, it gets into the data analysis and geographic sort of spatial variation of where water is and isn't. This Heart Force is a Colorado-based project that has a lot of effort on drought and wildfire. And again, this is sort of using these extreme events and breaking them down for students, helping students understand them, and so that they feel a little more prepared and a little more aware. And, again, you tread the line of like, look, we don't want people to be scared, but we do want people to be informed and aware. And I like that these are, they're very real, and I like the local emphasis. Okay, extreme weather, it's sort of very similar to these flooding and fire events. But here, this graphic gets updated every year. I kind of like it, again, because people are motivated by money. These are the disasters that have cost $1 billion each of property damage. And this is inflation adjusted. And so it's, let's say every other graph having to do with climate change with this big acceleration. But it's interesting to look at what type of events are driving these increases. So it's the severe storms, sort of like the previous topic, and the tropical cyclones, hurricanes, and whatnot. These things are costing us money. How many? How often? So 22 events per year in 2020. That's almost 2 per month. That's pretty exhausting. And if you look at the money, this is $500 billion in a year, and that pencils out to about $3,000 per taxpayer. So again, to say like, we are motivated to solve this problem. We're going to spend money on solutions and save some of this money from disaster cleanup. It's a good motivator. The $1 billion climate disasters is in the clean collection, and it automatically updates. So even though this says 2016, every year when the new one comes out, that link will automatically update to the latest version. So once you have that link, you'll go straight to the new one for each year. More about extreme weather. This one's game, Beat the Uncertainty. It's a game, like a card game, where you're literally dealt a hand of disasters, and then you kind of use your resources to find your best solution and see how resilient your city can be. Is that true? Well, misinformation is part of all of our jobs anymore. And so I think this is really important to teach something that brings fact checking and misinformation right out front. Instead, we're always like, swatting that, like, that's not true. But like, let's just elevate this topic and make sure that we teach that as a skill for climate and everything else. So I really like these activities that just bring that right to the front and help us walk students through how do we evaluate what's true and what isn't. That topic, sadly, will never go away. Here's another resilience-based one. Again, it's building up that idea of like, we can recover, we can plan and be more prepared for some of these disasters. Ecosystems, this is like a wide-ranging topic. Every type of ecosystem is affected by climate change. And so what's going on in your backyard? What's your ecosystem? What can your students feel connected to? Many ways to do this, but again, there's some great solutions focus. I particularly love things with Indigenous perspectives, because they have a really long view of science that's often based on observation and narrative and other cultural themes. So that's really fun and rich to use. Local scientists always doing cool work and happy to come talk to your class. And community action, we can pull invasive weeds and make our landscapes more resistant to fire damage and things like that. Farms. So ecosystems kind of bring it right home. Lots of really engaging stuff to talk about. This source shares Inuit observations of climate change. Again, I really love that. I think it's really important to be culturally broad with our climate education because it affects everybody. Again, this is from an Indigenous college, but it also works for wherever you are. Look at your local data and plot your local data. Phenology. So this is basically, phenology is the changing of the timing of events like blooms and migrations and berries ripening and things like that. So this is a unit that was put together by one of our favorite clean experts by basically piecing together different clean resources to make a whole unit on how ecosystems are changing as the climate changes. So another approach. The last theme here is human health. And this is a really interesting one, and I particularly love this. First of all, it has a strong environmental justice angle, and I think that's extremely important because the health impacts are not distributed equally, not even close. NOAA has this great toolkit for climate resilience that centers a lot on health. Sorry, this graphic's a little low res, but talks about just all the different ways this is affecting our health and then our mental health too. But what the silver lining to that is that sometimes people don't like to talk about climate change, but nobody likes pollution. Nobody is on the side of pollution. And if you solve air pollution, you have also solved climate change. And so it's quite an elegant bypass. And it's really easy. Since we've been working on air pollution since the 70s, really is when we got serious public policy around it, we know that it's a win-win because the money it takes to make new rules on air pollution, boy, we save that money many times over in terms of improved public health, and it has such direct public benefit from kids being in school more often because they're not having sick days, and people not missing work, and parents not having to stay home and take care of asthma attack in their kids. And so it's a really, really direct line, whereas climate change is not always so direct. So if you feel you have a resistant audience or you want to just show like a really direct line to cause and effect and solution, this is a good one. The price of improved public health is going to pay for a lot of our climate solutions, which is awesome. Because it's a win-win. As soon as you see things like electric school buses, a great solution because we've got less carbon pollution, less air pollution, all in one school bus. It's great. Some clean examples. Extreme heat, disproportional effects on Black Americans, particularly in urban areas. And so again, I like this sort of cultural angle. I think it's really important to show that these effects are not equal. Other side of the coin, a community garden. A really great solution for health in terms of getting kids outdoors, understanding their food, healthy food, this connecting with our health and nature. This recipe for a region is really cool. It's an activity where students look at recipes from and food culture from different places. And so they can, if you wanted to really go to town with it, you could have students be cooking these things. And so who doesn't love food? But so food and culture is just such a great fit. The theme, the overall, you can talk about this solution and that solution. It's really, really simple. I mean, climate change is really simple. It's caused by massive amounts of pollution. And so, we can get as complicated as we want, but swiftly cutting down on burning fossil fuels solves a whole bunch of problems at once. And there's something elegant and, of course, extremely true about that. And it kind of takes you out of the complex, nitpicky thing and just wow, we are, let's just pollute less. There's a lot of externalities. A lot of pollution isn't paid for. It's sort of free to pollute in many ways. And so that's what externalities are. Who's really bearing the impact for the pollution? Here's some people right on the front line, kind of an amazing image. And here's where you get away from science, if you like. Now we're in political science and philosophy and economics and social science. And so this is really deeper societal issue. Who pays for these pollution problems? And what's fair? What makes sense for us as a culture? Really interesting topics, and a little bit less divisive as your classic climate change type topic. Ultimately, it comes down to this: humans can take actions to reduce climate change and its impacts. This is another big part of the Clean collection. We also have a similar page in the energy section about energy decisions are influenced by economic, political, environmental, and social factors. They're sort of saying similar things there. And so lots of different angles here to get into, how are we looking at our energy supply? How can we improve it? What's the avenue we're going to take here? What can we do to make this problem better? And I think people get pretty excited when you start to talk about solutions, because a lot of them are just sexy, are cool. Like it's technology, or it's clean, or it's new, or it's just elegant, and so this is where you can say, like, we needed that impact to get us motivated, but now we're really excited by what we can do to improve the situation. The Clean collection has lots of stuff, as you can imagine, about solutions. This renewable energy living lab are engineering-based activities that are very specific about, sizing your solar panels and things like that. And they use GIS layers of sunlight and wind and costs and things like that. They're super interesting and they're really engaging. So here's just a screenshot of the Clean collection, and you can expand. Sorry, I can move my thing. If you look under humans can take action, you see lots and lots of matches. And then you can always use the search box to talk about your favorite solution. But another piece of science thinking that you get is this evaluation piece. Like, so the myth around like climate change and the solutions, it's always changing. Like every time I give this webinar, there's probably a new favorite myth going on. And like, used to be, well, the climate's not changing, or it's like it's happened before, or it's not humans, or it's China's fault. And now we're into what's good, is now the myths you're hearing are about the solutions. They're saying, oh yeah, you like electric vehicles? Well, what about the batteries? And what if they're burning coal? And like, what about? And it's like, cool, now we're actually going to evaluate solutions. Boy, I wish we were there decades ago, but at least we're getting there now. And so there's some great thinking to be done now in analyzing these different solutions. And so this can be, again, graphical, mathematical, political, etc. So this is my own work for Yale, but so, I was really curious about that question. What happens if you replace internal combustion car fleet, with electric cars, but fueled by different types of energy? And this is strictly a quantitative exercise that students can really get into. We know the efficiencies of different power plants, and we know the efficiencies of different types of cars, and there's some really cool math. And so students can be now really engaged on the front lines of like, let's evaluate these solutions. And by the way, as we switch to these electric cars, the tailpipe emissions are going away. And so that's going to help human health, especially in urban areas. But now we're moving some of those emissions to power plants. And so what's the difference there? And so again, you can get into some really great nuances. I'm thrilled that this is kind of where public discourse is at the moment. So there's a lot that we can really use here for our students. And it'll help them dispel the myth of the day that even a electric car powered by coal is still going to reduce overall energy use by 31%. And that's because internal combustion engines are unbelievably inefficient. So once we switch to a much more efficient drivetrain, then that energy is used. Even though it's still polluting energy, we use much less of it. So that's good news. Okay, so that's the whirlwind. It's exactly 4:30. So we would love for you to get involved. Clean is, a big community and a big network, and there's many ways that we would love to hear from you. Of course, using our resources, and but also like showing it, like telling us what are resources that you like that you can submit. We have these STEM flash emails that go out that are very topic-based and very timely. You can get them dropped right into your inbox every so often. The Clean Network has these weekly calls and a very lively email list where you kind of really feel like you're amongst your kindred spirits. You can be a Clean ambassador, where we go to, now that we're back on face-to-face workshops and meetings, we're out and about, and we have a couple more webinars. This, by the way, this is a page on our site where you can find links to all the things we do. And then a couple more webinars coming up about hands-on STEM-based energy activities. My favorite topic. I'm not teaching that one though. And this last one, how to teach climate change towards empowerment. So similar idea that we're not dwelling on the doom and gloom, that we're going to work towards solving this and get empowered. So that is the rundown.
And that last one really focused on
Thank you.
mental health aspects of
Oh, thank you.
teaching. Yeah, teaching, kind of addressing the mental health aspects for youth,
Awesome.
especially.
So important.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. That's all we got.